Hi, good evening, everyone. And I want to thank you for tuning into this live, which is going to probably run for 30 minutes or up to an hour. Now, the reason why we're doing this live today is to give viewers an opportunity to hear about one of the main topics and major issue in Guyana right now in respect to what's happening, what has happened, and also how are we going to deal with this situation in the future. This topic obviously is based on our election that is set for September 1st, 2025. Now, as voters go into the election, these are the things that they should consider as they select the next leader. We're not here to tell you exactly who you should vote for, but it's just an opportunity for you to hear about some of the things that is critical. Now, one of the main things that I want to talk about here tonight is something that has to do with a topic that most Guyanese love talking about, and it's a word that was being banned in Parliament. And I'm not sure why this word was banned in Parliament because this is a reality. Now, as the thumbnail says, as you can see in terms of the thumbnail, that we want to talk about the corruption situation in Guyana because it seems to many that we are living in a corrupt society. And that is for a fact. It's not something that we just decided to come up with and said, okay, there's something happening here and we need to talk about it. However, this is a topic that I want to enlighten you on, provide some information, give some context, and then for those who are going to the election, those who are voting, because I am not in Guyana, so I won't be able to vote, those who are going to be working towards selecting the leader that would lead us into the next 5 years up to 2030, it is your responsibility to make the most informed decisions. And in making the most informed decisions, the things that we can do is basically educate you on those areas that needs to be considered as you place your X to the party of your choice. Now, this is a topic that is very dear to me, and it's an opportunity for me to educate you on it. So it gives you the information that you will need to make that well informed decision as you head to the polls on September 1st, 2025, which is just a few days. And I know a lot of Guyanese are excited about this upcoming election because it's one of the critical elections that we will see in our own history. So it is critical for us to have this discussion with you. Now, if you're here and you're viewing this, I can see a couple of persons are coming in on this live and you would like to give like a comment or anything, you can go ahead and do so. But we want to talk about the corruption in Guyana and how this can or how it has been affected us over the years. So as we go into the next election, what we're looking for is transparency and accountability because we have seen many institutions in Guyana, for some unknown reasons, that are being politicized in so many different ways that these institutions are not able to carry out their task, their job effectively because of this word that was being banned in Parliament. Now, this is a word that we should always talk about. This is a word that we should always have at the back of our heads because it is something that happens in Guyana, and the records, the facts, the information is there so that you can come to your own conclusion. So we want to spend some time going into this word, and let's see how we can educate the Guyanese public on this. I do have a document here to guide me in respect to this topic. So I will be going back and forth, basically looking at my screen and to see how we can educate you on this issue. All right, so let me see if I can pull up this document. If you have anything to say, you can leave anything there in the comments. I see a few people watching, and thank you for tuning in. I'm not sure where you're tuning in from. I know it's late, but I know when persons wake up, they'll have a chance to see this live and also to be educated um, on this topic that we're going to be talking about. So, with no further ado, let's get into this topic. And I'm just trying to put it up here on my phone because I'm trying to look at my other screen, but uh, it seems as though I'm looking somewhere else and not things. So there's something there. Okay, I just take it off. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so I think I was able to pull it up on my phone. Let me see if this information is going to pop here. And then we can just take it from there. All right, so the information is here. All right, so let's talk about corruption. And sorry for the pause, but let's get into it. Let's talk about this word and the key takeaways, and it has to do with corruption in Guyana. Now, one, transparency index and global standing. So let's look at the transparency index and the global standing when it comes to corruption in Guyana. In the 2024 Corruption Perceptions Index, Guyana scored 39 out of 100, placing this country at 92nd out of 180 countries. 92nd of 180 countries. Now, if you put 99, 9 and 9 is 18. So 90 and 90 is 180. So we're a little bit over half the amount of countries that are experiencing corruption. So according to the 2024 Corruption Perceptions Index, Guyana scored 39 out of 100. And anybody that get 39 out of 100 in a test, that means you totally fail because you did not get 50%. 39 is terrible, right? So it placed us at 92nd out of 180 countries. Now, it says here that it was a slight decline from the previous years, that corruption has declined a little bit, but not too much. However, we are still within that index that considers this country to be a corrupt country. Now, this score reflects public sector corruption, including bribery, misallocation of funds, misuse of office, and weak enforcement of anti corruption laws. So, when you look at the index, it breaks it down so you can have a better understanding as to how they were able to score us. And they look at the public sector, they look at um, corruption when it comes to persons taking bribe. And this is not only persons, but these are individuals that are working in certain sectors, like, for example, allegedly, let's say, like the guy in the police force and persons in government. So, bribery was one of the things that they talk about in this report. Misallocation of funds. So, let's say government contracts and so forth. We're seeing funds being misallocated, and also the misuse of office. Now, the Carter Center recently put out a report in respect to the Guyana elections, and they were updating the country in terms of what they found in that report. And one of the things that they talk about is the use of government office, the use of government employees which is by the current administration to carry out their campaign task. So all of this contribute to the corruption in Guyana, which is critical. And if you're going into the election come September 1st, take this into consideration, okay? And also, it shows here the weak enforcement of anti corruption. So, when it comes to anti corruption regulations, anti corruption rules, and so forth, we do not have certain things in place. So, they consider that to be very weak in respect to um, our corruption rules or corruption laws in terms of protecting um, this country from this kind of activity. Now, number two, we're going to look at the influence of elites and also state capture. Transparency International reports suggest that the country is increasingly captured by corrupt elites. So we easily attract corrupt people or people who are elites, they're rich and so forth. So this country attract those kind of individuals. And I was not even aware of that. So we have persons from other countries, probably other places within the country, who take part in this type of corruption in Guyana, according to the Transparency International reports. Also, particularly in sectors like land allocation, where affordable housing projects and state contracts are often given to officials associates. So in this case, they mentioned that in Guyana, also I can take it back from other persons. I will take that back, other person elsewhere outside of the country. But they give examples here where the when it comes to the elites that are being influenced in Guyana and state capture, it mentioned here the sectors like land allocation, which is Ministry of Housing, where affordable housing projects and state contracts are often given to official associates. So instead of in when basically what they're saying that when these tenders are out, instead of giving it to the real contractors, it is being given to the elites in Guyana to carry out these kind of projects. So corruption take place in so many different ways. All right. So then also, just to add to that, it says that the United Nations has also expressed concerns about the effectiveness of anti-corruption mechanism, especially within police and public institutions, and flag the lack of enforcement of whistleblower protection. So basically, what they're basically saying here, in terms of them having these anti-corruption systems in place, the United Nations is still concerned about about the effectiveness of the anti-corruption mechanism that was being put in place, especially within the police and public institutions. So instead of persons coming and talk about the corruptions in these institutions, there are no whistleblowers. Persons are not coming forward to say exactly how they have benefited or if they have seen this kind of activity. So, this kind of anti corruption mechanism that we have in Guyana basically is it's not working. This is the reason why corruption continues to happen in so many different places. Now, we have the facts. This is not information that we are taking from other places, but the facts are here. Now, let's look at the police force under scrutiny. The Guyana police force has frequently been identified as a corruption hotspot, particularly in procurement processes. High level officials, such as Assistant Commissioner Calvin Brutus, have faced allegations of financial misconduct. So we've seen corruption taking place in the Guyana police force. And this report is basically saying that the Guyana police force is a hotspot for corruption. Now, if the Guyana police force is a place for corruption, how can we rely and trust the Guyana police force? So basically, one of the things that we need to do is to have a leader in place, and this leader is going to ensure that the anti corruption mechanism is working effectively, because we have seen here, and from time to time we have heard it, and we've seen the Guyana police force in action. So we've seen that the Guyana police at this moment is being compromised because it is known as the hot spot for corruption. So, as you're making that decision on September 1st, think about these things. Is this a country that you want for yourself, for your family, and also for your future generation, like your kids, your grandkids, your great grandkids? Is this the kind of um, environment you would like them to grow up in, or you want to be in an environment that is that protect you from these kind of things, where we can see the kind of transparency and accountability that we've been asking for years. So this is critical, right? This is critical. So it's an opportunity for us to take all of this and think about it as we make that decision as we go to the polls on Monday. All right. It also said that civil society leaders and diplomatic channels have raised concerns about systemic immunity within the law enforcement. The law enforcement is compromised in so many ways that we've seen that there's a systemic immunity within the law enforcement. Leaders and diplomatic channels have raised concerns about these things, and other countries would have raised concerns about the type of corruption that takes place in Guyana. All right, so that was the third point that I wanted to raise with you. So let's see if we can recap. So the first point has to do with transparency index and global standing, and we said that Guyana placed 92nd out of 180 countries. We were able to score 39 out of 100, which is really bad. Then we talk about the influence of elites and state capture. So we talk about the allocation, um, we talk about corruption, which has to do with the elites, particularly in sectors like land allocation, where affordable housing projects and state contracts are often given to officials, associates. And then we also talk about the Guyana police force, which is always under scrutiny because it is the hot spot for corruption, and particularly in procurement processes, and high level officials such as the commissioner. Well, I mentioned here Commissioner Calvin Brutus have faced allegations of financial misconduct. So, corruption, yes, it is in Guyana. It's not a word that should have been banned um, in Parliament, because we have the facts to show it, that the reports and all the research that is being done on Guyana, that we placed 92nd out of 180 countries. So count from 100, as a matter of fact, count from 1 to 92. So all these countries, and we placed 92nd. 92nd. Okay? So it's really bad. We could have been at a place where our score is pretty low and we're not facing this kind of situation. But corruption do exist in this country. And Guyanese, as you go to the polls on September 1st, think about this. Is this what you want for yourself? Is this what you want for your generation, for the next generation? Is this what you want for the future generation? Is this what you want for your children? Is this what you want for the entire public? You want to have safety. You want to be able to say that this is a country that you know that you are safe, safe from all these different things. But because of corruption, we cannot achieve certain things. How are we going to rule out corruption? We could only do so by doing the right thing, selecting the right leader that is going to create mechanisms and put mechanism in place to curb this kind of behavior. Number four, let's look at the geopolitical and criminal corruption that occurs in Guyana. Now, the US sanctions have targeted a Guyanese law enforcement official alleged to have accepted bribes as part of transnational drug trafficking networks. Guyana is known to be a transit route for narcotics, with corruption facilitating these criminal pathways. So we are a main route, a main channel for corruption. The issue of illicit gold smuggling has also emerged, with powerful businessman Azud Mohammed and his family sanctioned by the US Treasury for bribery, tax evasion, and gold smuggling. Their political involvement raised new concerns about corrupt influence. And as we know, Azud Mohammed is also contesting the elections. But we need to also understand and face the facts. Yes, corruption do exist, and we need to also understand as to why Mr. Mohammed was sanctioned. Okay, so he was sanctioned because of bribery, tax evasion, and gold smuggling. His political involvement raised new concerns about corrupt influence. And obviously, it is the United States, so they're saying that, okay, then if he's involved in corruption, anybody that is working alongside him, or anybody that's a part of his crew, his team, is going to be influenced in this kind of behavior. And this is the reason why they continue to put pressure on certain individuals that align themselves with Mr. Mohammed. But like I said, Guyanese, you have the option to choose and you have the option to decide. I could only provide the information and educate you on the topic, and so that you can make the wise decision. Also, we need to understand that the government, the current administration, has pushed back against this CPI reports, questioning their empirical basis and also attributing them to political bias. He has also maintained that his administration's high program implementation rates reflect actual transparency and progress. Now, you cannot just use like he's saying here, that his high program implementation rates. Now, when you look at some of the monies that is being spent for certain projects, you can be the judge. You can be the judge. A small building is cost so many million of Guyanese dollars, and these monies could be used for helping Guyanese who are in financial difficulties. There's so many families that can't put food on the table. So Ali is basically saying that we need to look at his track record, and then we can say, well, okay, this is the transparency. No, that is not the transparency. What we want to see everything on paper. We want to see where the money is going, and how the money is shared, how it's distributed in respect to the contracts. But because they cannot show these things, this is what indicate to all of us, the Guyanese citizens, that we are living in a society that is corrupted. If you can't show, if you can't show any kind of accountability for what you're doing, how is it that you expect anybody to believe you? Come on, right? Does that make sense? Now, let that make sense in terms of what he's saying, right? He's saying he has publicly criticized the CPI reports. I'm going to repeat, questioning their empirical basis and sorry, attributing them to political bias, right? Attributing, sorry, them to political bias. He maintains that his administration's high program implementation rates reflect actual transparency and progress. And I guess we have heard this word over and over again. I think it's now built into our DNA and is also built into our vocabulary. Progress. But when we talk about progress, we need to talk about so many other things. Why can't we talk about progress and talk about corruption at the same time? So, this is critical. This is important. This is critical. So, that is what we need. We need to get the information, the facts, and so that we can make a very good and well informed decision. All right. So let me just wrap up this little discussion here. And I hope that by going through this information, that it would have educated some of you in terms of what's going on in Guyana based on this reports. All right. So some of the areas of concerns that we have, and I'm going to look at the areas of concern and also the key issues, right? So there is a perceived corruption, which has to do with, and we said that just now, low transparency index score, stagnation in improvements. So instead of us improving in terms of how we present information, and we have the accountability and transparency, there is stagnation. So instead of we trying to change some of those and some of those mechanisms that we put in place and making it more effective, we're not doing anything about it. We're just allowing whatever is in place continue to happen, continue to go forward in a way that, like, as if we don't care. Okay? So the elite influence, which has to do with the key issues in respect to that, has to do with cronyism, state land, misallocation, infrastructure contracts. So those are the issues when we come to and talk about elite influence. Now, another area of concern is police corruption, procurement, improprieties, lack of accountability in the police force. And that is something that we can go on and on about the police force. If we talk about Adriana Young, we see what happened there. No proper investigation, no press conference. So many things happen, and we still today have not been able to be like given the information necessary in terms of a report that tells us exactly what happened to that young lady. May her soul rest in peace. So, this is the kind of accountability that we're talking about. And if you're saying that we don't have any kind of corruption in our system, something is wrong because there is a lack of accountability in the Guyana police force. I did another comment in respect to the Guyanese police force, so you can also have a look at that. I did a video on that, and an entire video talking about the Guyana police force and also why they're behaving the way they are behaving. But this report focused a lot on the Guyana police force because it says that it is the hot spot. It is the hot spot for corruption. It is the hot spot for corruption. And it's a hotspot because right now we're using internet and we want to get the best internet. So we're going to look for the best hotspot that we can get. This is what's happening in Guyana. The Guyana police force is the hotspot for corruption. Now, why is it that they are there? The Guyana police force is to serve and protect and to ensure that you're safe. That's where your tax dollars are going. Do you feel safe in Guyana when it comes to the Guyana police force? Let's be honest. Let's ask ourselves that questions. Do you feel safe? So come September 1st, you have an opportunity to change that. You have an opportunity to make the difference and choose the candidate that you know that is going to hold everybody accountable. That candidate who's going to tell you where that money is going. That candidate who's going to give all of us an option to be part of this newfound oil economy. You're going to be able to see where that money is going because you're now going to become a part of the process. And you know what? When they started the agreement, it was supposed to be like that. It was supposed to be where Guyanese can see where this money is going. There are going to be reports and all these different things so that we can have full transparency as a part of the process. Do we have that now? No, we don't. All we're seeing that money is leaving and we don't know where they're going. The bridge and all these things that is being done, it was inevitable. The last bridge, the bridge that we have right now, the bridge that we had, sorry, or the bridge that we currently have, because the one that they're still building, that bridge was built since 1978. I was not even born yet. I was not even born yet. And to put another bridge like that in Guyana with the technologies and different things, and I'm hoping that they're doing that. So you have the nice cameras that can pick up people when they're gonna, because you're not supposed to be driving speed on the bridge and all these kind of things. So I hope that they have all the technology necessary for this to happen, right? But it is critical and it is important as you go into the elections that we think about all of these things. Okay? Now let's do a little final breakdown, and then I'm probably going to give you another quick synopsis, or I'm probably going to come on here again tomorrow and do another live to go in a little bit deeper and how this can affect your vote on September 1st. Now, corruption in Guyana spans the bureaucratic, economic, and political spectrums, from elite decadence and criminal cartels to institutional weaknesses. While legal frameworks exist, enforcement gaps continue, undermining trust and democratic integrity. Yeah, so while we have all these systems in place, we still have a problem. Do we trust the system? No. So it undermines the democratic integrity. So it's important for us to understand that, right? I wanted to go into another piece of information here. Guyana decides 2025 corruption fears loom as election day nears. Now, with just days to go before the September 1st general and regional elections, corruption has once again emerged as one of the defining issues for voters. So, this is one of the main issues for voters. Civil society organizations, international observers, and ordinary citizens are raising concerns that could shape both the outcome of the vote and the credibility of the electoral process. Transparency and integrity in question. That is in question. Guyana ranks 92nd out of 180 countries on Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index with a score of 39 out of 100. Analysis say this reflects ongoing challenges of state capture of elites, misuse of public resources, and weak enforcement of anti corruption laws. Reports of government contracts favoring political allies, land allocations to well connected business figures, and allegations of bribery within the Guyana police force have fueled public frustration. Critics argue that this environment undermines equal opportunities for political contenders and weakens public trust in institutions. Okay? Now, election specific concerns, and this has to do with elections. And I want you to pay attention to this because it's very critical. The Carter Center's pre election statement highlighted troubling patterns: misuse of state resources in campaigning, including vehicles, government workers, and public projects, bias in state media, which favors the ruling PPPC, reports of public sector workers facing intimidation if they appear sympathetic to the opposition. So anybody that wants to show any likeness or anything that's in favor of the opposition, they're being faced with all kinds of intimidation. You will lose your job and all these kind of things. So people are even afraid to make any comments on Facebook because they don't want to lose their jobs. Now, these concerns come as both major parties, PPPC and APNU, accuse each other of corruption, while new players like the Forward Guyana movement promise to dismantle entrenched systemics of abuse. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap up. So this part here is very critical going forward. Now, the bottom line is, as Guyana prepares to vote, corruption remains the elephant in the room. Beyond campaign promises, the ability of the next government to confront graft and an ability, as a matter of fact, and build trust in public institutions will determine whether Guyana's democratic future matches its vast economic potential. Okay? So, what we do on September 1st will determine how we go forward. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening and thank you for being a part of this live. I know it's very late and also I will go and get some sleep myself. But for this week, we're going to be doing these lives and so that we can educate you on different issues and so that persons who are going to the polls so that they could make a well-informed decision in respect to the Guyana that you want, in respect to the Guyana that you deserve for your children and for your children's future and for your children's future at this time. Once again, this is Dunstan Wilson. Thank you for listening. I am the person that is running News Guyana 24. I'm located in Canada. I am 100% Guyanese. I've been visiting Guyana for the past couple months, back and forth. So I'm a full Guyanese. I'm a bona fide Guyanese, and I would want to at some day go back to my home country and live there. So the reason why I am doing this, the reason why I have this channel, the reason why I using this opportunity to educate all of you is because I want to be able to live in a society that I can feel safe and I can a society that is free from corruption and a society that we do have full transparency and also accountability. So, to all of you, thank you so much. And for those who will be listening, feel free to always follow us on YouTube. If you're not following us, you can go ahead and do so. Click on the subscribe button. We are also on Facebook. You can look for News Guyana 24 or NG 24. We're also on TikTok and as News Guyana 24. We're also on Instagram as News Guyana 24 4. So two fours. News Guyana 24 4. And you'll find us there. Thank you so much for listening and do have a good evening.